Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dr. Steve Schlintz, and I want to welcome you back to another episode of Dental Practice Freedom Radio. And today, what I wanted to do is actually elaborate a little bit on this previous cruise. If you listened to the last episode, you know that I went on an 8-day cruise, and it was a lot of fun. But what I'm going to do is talk about how that cruise really kind of solidified for me this idea of segmentation in dentistry. And if you guys have listened to this podcast episode or these podcast episodes at all in the last 2 years or however long it's been now, you know that I'm a big proponent of wellness-based dental care, especially as a solo practice owner or a smaller practice. I make no qualms about it. I am not a DSO. I don't want to be a DSO. I have no desire to run a DSO. And I stay in what I do best with my patients. And I feel like I'm in a great spot when it comes to dentistry. And I do the type of dentistry I want to do as much or as little as I want to do it. And I have some unique skills that I think anyone can learn and differentiate themselves. So that's my kind of precursor warning, if you will, when it comes to this. But I think that I'm not saying DSOs are bad. I don't get me wrong. Everybody that practices, there's going to be different models that you can get into, and as long as you work the model, one of my mentors, Dr. Schuster, always would say, "The model works if you work the model." And so for him, it was a more wellness-based approach, but it could work in a DSO. It could work in, I think the one that you're really going to struggle is if you're a solo provider and you really do nothing unique, and those types of practices are probably not going to make it the next 10, 20, 30 years. However long it takes, I don't think that those practices will make it. But I do think that dentistry is going in the same way that medicine has went in a lot of ways, where things are getting larger and larger and larger from a hospital setting. But there's this group of doctors that really come to the forefront when it comes to wellness, and they kind of break the mold. And dentistry is no different. And when I was on this cruise, it really kind of hit that home. And you might be asking, well, how did it hit that home? I've been on a few different cruises now. I was on cruises as a kid. A couple of years ago, or last year would have been, I did a Smiles at Sea cruise where I was on a Carnival cruise line. This one was Royal Caribbean. And I know there's other cruise lines out there that I actually got a brochure. And it's like they pixeled me on Facebook, and they sent me, I don't know if you guys know what pixeled is. Basically, they've targeted me now for ads because I was on a cruise. And, I started getting hit with ads for cruises, and I got a brochure for Crystal Cruise Lines. And these 3 cruise lines are, even though they're all cruises, distinctly different, absolutely different. And your practice is like these cruise lines. Make no mistake about it. So here you go. If you guys are cruise goers, let me give you a brief synopsis of what I've seen. Carnival cruises are known as party cruises. And there's nothing wrong with Carnival. Again, I was on a Carnival cruise. I know a lot of people that go on Carnival cruises, but they're a little bit more fun. There's a little bit more drinking, and the crowd's a little bit different, right? They're more party goers, a little bit more rowdy, if you want to consider it that way. Okay. It's a certain type of crowd. Then you have Royal Caribbean. Now, when I was on the cruise, Royal Caribbean is a very family-oriented cruise line. And let's go back. So Carnival, their ships are designed for drinking, right? So there's a lot of bars open a lot. Even the way the pools are structured, they're by the bars. They encourage, drinking by the pools and the hot tubs, and there's just a lot of drinking. The packages for drinking are affordable. The food was okay. And this is on this cruise line the cruise that I was on. It wasn't exceptional. But even the food was designed for more drinking. Pizza, burgers, like chips, just stuff that promotes a more party type atmosphere. There was kids on the cruise, but the events weren't necessarily catered to the kids. And I'm not speaking for every Carnival cruise, but this is the cruise I was on. Then you have Royal Caribbean, and Royal Caribbean had the flow rider in the back. So it's got like the wave board and rock climbing and all these different activities that were designed more for families. More family type trivia, Disney trivia, family activities, things like that. So there was still drinking, but it wasn't designed for that. Whereas Carnival, it's kind of designed for that. Royal Caribbean was much more of a family experience. Now, I'm speaking here because there's been other cruise lines that I've been on. I've been on a Disney cruise, but I was a kid. And I'm sure Disney cruises are different now, but it's the same type of thing. A Disney cruise is really more to get the kids away and have all these different activities, and the parents can relax. So it's kind of like a benefit of both. And then this brochure that I got for Crystal Cruises was like very exotic locations, 15-day cruises, 17-day cruises. That in and of itself is telling you that that's going to be a different type of clientele, right? Somebody that can take 17 days and go on a cruise is probably not a family. It's probably older cruise goers or people that are wealthy. And so you looked at it, some had butler services. The rooms were exquisite. They'd go around, just some of the most exotic locations. And then the price points were different. And so why do I bring this up? I think we can learn something from these cruise lines. Like, these cruise lines know who they are, right? Carnival Cruise does not, the Carnival Cruise Line does not pretend to be exclusive, right? They don't say, hey, we're going to give you a butler service. They say, hey, you're going to have a great time on this cruise, and it's going to be affordable, and you're going to have a great time. And part of that is that you might have a smaller room. It may not be as updated. You may not have the best food, but it's affordable. You can get away. Usually they're 3, 5, 7 nights. It's a much shorter cruise, although they do have longer cruises, but the majority of them are 3 to 7 nights. They know who they are. Royal Caribbean knows who they are. Crystal Cruise Lines knows who they are. Now, as practice owners, though, this is where it gets very interesting, and I could have a lot of different episodes on this. If a lot of practice owners that I talk to, they try to be like both Carnival and Crystal to like certain patients. It's like, oh, I get this. And one of the big ones, and I'm not saying that this is good or bad, it just is. If you're PPO, if you're taking insurance, but you also have a fee-for-service base that you want to grow, you're at odds. Like, those two patient bases are at odds with each other, because how you run a successful PPO practice is not necessarily how you would run a successful fee-for-service practice. Different types of patients, different office, different structure, different systems. If Carnival tried to have exclusive Crystal-like type people on their cruise line, they'd fail. If Crystal started to let more people come into Carnival-like experiences onto the Crystal cruise line, it would fail. This is such an important thing to understand, because I don't think dentists do. We generally try to say, hey, I want to be all things, all people, and I want to make everybody happy. You can't. You absolutely can't. So I think we can learn something from these cruise lines. They know who they are. They know what their vision is. And then they put a structure in place to maximize the profit in that type of business. All right. If you're not profitable as a practice owner, you won't make it. Right? It won't happen. And so you have to understand that every one of those cruise lines has a different system and structure in place, even though it's a cruise. So every dental office, even though it's a dentist, is probably, if they were doing it right, would look different, right? A Medicaid type practice is going to look different than a fee-for-service practice. But where a lot of dentists struggle is when they try to encapsulate both or 3 types of, they want to be Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Crystal, depending on the patient. And I'm telling you, it will never happen. So dentistry is definitely segmenting right now. There's unique segments of dentistry coming. There is mass-produced dentistry for a lot of patients. And then you have patients that are looking for something unique and different. There's a lot of Carnival-like dentistry There's not as much crystal-like dentistry. But in order to be a crystal cruise line or crystal dental practice, you have to function and structure your office differently. Now, if I was to talk to a younger dentist, because I talk to a lot of young dentists that are looking at either kind of invigorating the practice they just purchased, or they're starting from scratch. And a lot of my clients actually are fee-for-service startups. Like they're moving in that direction. They want to do something unique. I don't get too many people that want to grow a DSO and they're talking to me. My message doesn't resonate with those people. But somebody that's like, hey, I want to have a practice where I do exquisite dentistry. I get paid well for doing it. And I want to have patients that truly value what I want. How do I create that? Well, first, you have to have the clinical skills. You have to have the practice management skills. And you have to have the structure that allows you to do that kind of dentistry consistently. But you can't just say, well, I was in a insurance-based environment and I just want to have a fee-for-service practice. And then you ask them, well, how you do that? Well, I'm basically going to do the same thing I did before, but just not take insurance. That's never going to work. That won't happen. You might be able to do it for a little while, but you won't be able to do it sustainably for a long period of time, because the system and the structure of those two types of practices, when they're running profitably, are fundamentally different. And if you don't understand that, and some people say, well, that's not true. Like that, they're not fundamentally different. I will tell you, they're fundamentally different. I've been in enough insurance-based practices, and I've been in enough fee-for-service practices that those two, when they're running and humming along effectively, they operate totally different. Now, if you're transitioning, you're going to live in both of those. So I'm not saying if you're kind of on both sides of the fence, you're never going to make it. No, you can make it, but you're going to have to gravitate towards one or the other. You can't live in both those worlds for a long period of time. You will inevitably have to migrate. Let's say I have more clients for me are in an insurance-based environment. They want to go insurance independent. They don't know how to get there. And, we focus a lot on new patient structure and how we take our new patients through a process as a way to get out of the insurance-based trap. But in order to do that, there's a system, but then on the other side, you have a structure that's totally different. So you can do more of that fee-for-service style dentistry. So obviously, if you've listened to other podcast episodes, I talk in depth about that, what that looks like, how do you structure a new patient process to deliver more fee-for-service type dentistry. But just take a page out of these cruise lines books, like start to ask yourself, and it's not good or bad if you're in any one of these three camps. Like I'm telling you, a lot of dentists that are trying to be crystal should not be crystal cruise lines. Like they're not set up that way. They don't have the technical skills. They don't have the management skills. They don't have the structural skills. Their office is too large. It's going to be very difficult for them to do that unless it's a special type of dentist. But if you're in a position where hey, I'm going to be Royal Caribbean, but I really want to move in this direction. How do I do that effectively? You might be able to do that. You just have to have the right tools and information. But all I want you to do today is really ask yourself, which cruise line am I? It's not good or bad. It just is. If I had to pick one of these three right now, which one am I? Which one do I want to be? And then how do I get from the cruise line I am to the cruise line I want to be? And, hopefully this gives you, something to think about as you start the new year. Really be honest with yourself. It goes back to the episode I just did about assessing current reality. Too many dentists do not adequately assess their current reality. They think everything's fine, and it's not. They think they know their structures, but they don't. They think they have systems, but they don't. And so they continue just kind of pulling the wool over their eyes, pretending that it's going to get better, and it never does. So hopefully this podcast episode has helped you. I wish you nothing but the best of luck in the new year. And obviously I'm going to be taking time to do a lot more podcast episodes in the future. If you need me at all, or if you have any questions, there's a link to a complimentary coaching call that I do for any potential new client to make sure I understand where you're at, where you want to go, how I can best help you. And if you get value out of this podcast, I would encourage you to leave me a review or rating. That helps me out immeasurably in getting the reach out, getting this podcast out to more people, so I can continue to talk about things that I'm very passionate about, which is wellness-based dentistry, helping patients moving beyond the chair so you can do more of what you want to do when you want to do it. So with that being said, take care. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you at the next episode.